some of the foods that the different tribes used or made, they of course used a lot of the buffalo and used every part of the buffalo in something. A lot of the meat was dried. These are strips of buffalo meat that the ladies would strip off, and then they would hang them on drying racks over the fire and make what the kids today think is jerky. This is very dry and keeps a long time, as long as it doesn't get wet. It'll keep for years. The other things that they had, they would dry berries. These are service berries, which commonly known as Saskatoons. And they would dry these and put them away in various containers so that they had food for the winter time and the drought times. Those are very tasty. They reconstitute by just putting them in water, or they would pound them up and add them to the buffalo meat to make pemmican along with a little bit of fat and whatnot. From the more southern tribes, this is camas, which is a root that grows in huge fields, and the natives would shape a special stick for digging camas root, and they would go out and dig camas root. There's several types of camas. There's white and black and a couple of others. But this root was then put in underground ovens and baked, and then became a staple of food. It's fairly bland tasting, but it's quite nutritious. It saved Thompson a couple of times on his travels. But this was a very popular staple in the Pacific Northwest, more than up on the prairies up here. As the fur trade evolved, the pemmican trade was what kept the voyageurs going. I mean, they had basic factories of native communities that were cranking out tons and tons of pemmican. And pemmican put in stitched skin bags and whatnot would keep for years as well. Most of us probably wouldn't care for it too much. With pounded buffalo with the berries worked in, Saskatoons or whatever berries were around, and usually something like bear fat or animal fat pounded into it. It's very nutritious, but very redundant day after day after day. The beaver was money, and the natives wanted these luxuries, is what they were to them, and you know, to be able to take a Hudson Bay blanket, which was lighter yet warmer, and trade 4 or 5 beaver pelts for that, it made their life so much simpler. They made clothing out of it. They traded for things like the stroud and different fabrics, the sailcloth and whatnot. You know, for making pouches or whatever. It simplified their life. The natives were making these. I mean, out of a moose skin, you can get 50 or 60 pairs of moccasins, and the native women would make these for all of the voyageurs in the fur trade. That's what they had for footwear. And if you look at Thompson's portage around Kootenai Falls, Joseph has really shown the rocks there. I mean, that is sharp thing. When we did the reenactment of the portage around Kootenai Falls, I mean, the guys could hardly walk on it in their moccasins. I mean, they had to be tough people to walk and then to carry that. One little slip and you're down. That's 300 feet into the water there. It's awesome. It sure gives you respect for what they did. The trading tactics, I guess, of different individuals, and particularly the American fur trade was bad for bringing mostly alcohol into the trade. A lot of the traders, Thompson being one of them, did not want to have alcohol involved in the fur trade. He was with his native wife, Charlotte Small, and he had seen what the alcohol can do to the native community as well as the white community. And once he crossed the House Pass over into the Columbia drainage, he said there would be no whiskey on this side of the boat, and he made a point of even destroying it so that it wasn't involved in the trade. But there was lots of liquor coming up in later years from the south up through Fort Benton and whatnot, up whiskey traders running up. The the barter system prevailed to a certain point, but the major companies like the Hudson Bay Company and the Northwest Company had their limits to where they would drop to on their pricings. They knew they had to obtain so many beaver skins or so many of this or that for cloth or fish hooks or guns and powder or whatever. And there was a pretty standard amount paid as the years went on. It varied, of course, according to the value of the furs and the distance that they had to go inland to get them. But the natives knew pretty well what they were going to be able to glom onto when they brought their furs into the post to trade. So they had a good expectation of what a rifle would cost them in furs and lead and shot and powder and cloth for clothing and any of the other, steel knife blades and things like that. So there was territorial areas, particularly with the Blackfoot and whatnot, that did not want other tribes into their territory, and they would often act as intermediaries and get a little more for the goods going the other way as well. Quality of goods was one thing too, and both the Hudson Bay and the Northwest Company maintained very, very high quality standards with their goods that they traded. So they were very cognizant of that they wanted quality product out there, but they expected quality product back, and they judged the furs and other items that were traded accordingly. So they were very, very shrewd on both sides. So the only time it really varied and got out of control is when the use of alcohol was brought into it, and then not only ruining the lifestyle of the natives, but it certainly made the Europeans take advantage of the natives in not a very nice way.
Elles vont nous dire, mais en partant, as-tu fréquenté des Allemands qui a composé la chanson, ce Joe Blanchette, un joli garçon.